everyone, and welcome to my second video on journey of practicing. It really bothered me how I had to leave the last bit because I didn't really get very far. Basically, it's a very difficult bit. It's definitely difficult to play, and there's no way that I can expect to master it in 15 minutes. But it sort of bothered me a lot to leave it with hardly any kind of an improvement at all. So I decided not to do the dishes and not to clear up the kitchen and then spend a couple more minutes on it because it really bothers me. It's also not easy doing these videos because I'm used to playing in front of an audience. I've been playing in front of an audience since I was 6 years old. But usually I play prepared, and usually I know what I'm doing when I play. And this is totally new, and the thought of people watching me struggle through this is not that great for my confidence. But let's just continue. I'm going to continue exactly where I left off because it really bothered me leaving it like that. Okay, yeah, plenty of work to do. So what I noticed, there's a trick which I can do to hit that G up here. So now I jump into the G and I hear it a little bit and I can correct. It's not that great if I would ever actually do a studio recording of this piece because the microphone picks it up. But if I'm playing live in front of an audience, it's certainly preferable to hear this than to have an out of tune G. So for now, I'm going to use the trick, and hopefully by the time I get to playing this in front of an audience, which by the looks of it will probably be in about 30 years, never mind, but when I get to playing it in front of an audience, probably my hand will know where it is. But for the time being, I'll work with this trick. This high C is hard to get to sound good. That's why I practice it a little bit. And now comes the really difficult bit. Notice I'm going on a little further than I did in the last video. That's important because if I always stop at the same place, I practice the stopping. And that's not what I want, so I go on a little further. I'll go on a little further today. You also might have noticed that I was bringing those arpeggios into a slight rhythmical structure. That's a trick from Ricci. When you have arpeggios like that, to practice in double stops, and then also quite soon try to get them into a rhythmical structure, basically because that forces me to improve my correction speed. If I always give myself masses and masses of time, then yes, okay, it'll sound better and it'll be more in tune, but that doesn't help me. This is a fast bit. This is supposed to be fast. So I have to have a very, very high correction speed. So I'd better start with that now already, because otherwise I'll go nowhere. Down fourth finger always slips around there. lots of patience needed. This is hard to hear. I just can't get it in tune. Yeah, it just goes to show how far off one can be in chromatics. That's one of the things that makes it so difficult. That bit is difficult because you're very high up, so it's hard to get it to sound, and you're moving down chromatically, and if that's not perfectly in tune, you'll end up quite somewhere else than you actually wanted to end up in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just practice this bit because it's much more difficult than what comes before. I'm not satisfied with what's there before yet, but it's marginally better than it was before, and that's just got to be enough at this stage right now. No more I can do. So what I do is I find my C. There it is. Sixths are very hard to hear properly. I still can't hear that sixth properly. There, now that's better. Sometimes one just can't hear something. One hears it's, or at least in my case it's the case. I hear it's out of tune, but I just don't hear fast enough to be able to, I don't hear fast enough how much out of tune it is and whether it's too sharp or too flat to be able to correct. If I really can't get anywhere, I leave it and come back to it another time, because there's no point in staying forever on one note. That just makes me frustrated. It'll make you guys bored, and it usually doesn't help very much. Usually, perhaps the next day, that's already better. So let's do this again. Okay, I've done quite a lot of slow work on this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that section a little bit faster, concentrating on the correct rhythm again, just to get an idea of where I stand now. This is never fun because there's no way I can be satisfied. So yeah, it won't sound that good, but one has to do that every now and then, because if you only practice slowly, you're too far away from the music, and your muscles need to know when to move, and you need to have a musical structure inside you. So I recommend also playing it with the correct rhythm. This is not going to be in tempo. There's no way I can do that in tempo yet. I wouldn't get past just a couple of notes. But let's just see how this goes now. would say there's a slight improvement. It doesn't feel secure yet, so I should do this a little bit more. And also there were other notes which were just not hit and just not in tune. Very nice that G seems to be sorting itself out, simply because I do it so often because I start there. It's not what I'm concentrating on with my practicing now. I've got bigger problems, but that just seems to sort it out, or sort itself out. So that's often why I pick the places where I start my sections, where I pick them to just take something along and hope that it just sorts itself out. Secure, at least certainly the chromatic going down is getting a little bit better. So I think what I'll do is I'll just continue that a little bit. The C is hard to read, partially because the fourth finger is on the G string and the second finger is on the D string, and the fourth finger is short and the second finger is long, so it's uncomfortable. Okay, it's got to about the point now that I don't think it will get a lot better today. So basically I hope that this will bear fruits. It's very marginally better than it was before. And so what I'm going to do is now I really am going to call it a day for this, because yes, I could continue practicing that. I could do hours and hours and hours on it. But the thing is that one has to move on, and it doesn't help to spend too much time on one bit. I've been spending comparatively long time on this bit simply because it's so difficult, and also because I'm explaining what I'm doing as I go along, so that of course also takes time. But it's interesting for me too, because it makes me more conscious of what I'm doing. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think one of the biggest advantages that professional players have over amateurs is that we have a lot of experience, as in when it makes sense to move on and when it doesn't. Like before, it really bothered me that I had to leave it like that, and now I'm not happy with the bit. It's not like I'm satisfied, but I feel in my hand that it's going somewhere, and that has to be enough, because either basically if I would have more time to practice now, I would move on in the piece, or basically I have to move on with my life. I can't have my life come to a standstill because of a difficult bit. So I think that's probably one of the advantages we professionals have, that we have a lot of experience in when to move on and when not to move on. Well, the only way you're going to get experience is by doing it. Basically, if there's zero results, I would not move on. If there's a tiny little bit of result, that's usually enough to move on, because I'll get back to that bit again. So Hope you enjoyed this and see you next time.